Hello. Ooh, your handle is 8 dragons, I think. So, hello. Sorry if I got that wrong. Yeah, there's a couple things. Okay, first of all, we need to talk about what we mean by determinacy. I mean, there is determinism, which is the idea that everything can be determined. But there's also a softer form of determinacy, which is that I can, determine something just to a certain degree of accuracy. That's not determinism. That's the kind of determinism we do have in the macroscopic level, even given quantum reality. For example, the fact that that bottle of liquor can just disappear without you even drinking it, yeah, that's a part of the pattern of this reality. That can happen. That the fact that that is very low probability, also part of the pattern. And that's the part that I'm relying on. I'm just making safe bets. It's like the sun one day is going to blow up and it won't come up. But I can make a plan for breakfast tomorrow and have pretty good odds in that case. So we're really just playing the odds, and that's good enough. Um, the probability of something with as many particles and as complex as that bottle of alcohol disappearing is so low, it's possibly lower than it would need to be to ever happen. So that probability is so low that it's possible it would never happen in the age of the universe. I haven't done the probability, so I don't know, but there is that possibility. And in any case, it's such a low probability. I'm not saying we ignore it. I'm just saying that when it comes time to make a bet, we bet on the high probability thing. Now, I'm a skeptic. So one thing you said just doesn't jive at all with how I look at this stuff, which is you pointed out that if there's always a better model out there, which I do believe there is a better model, then that means that QM at best is just a mathematical predictive model, and that's exactly what Bohr said that it was. The thing is that that's, again, good enough. As a skeptic, I don't expect 100%. You say we can know that model is accurate to a certain degree, but it can never be true. Well, yeah, it can never be true in the sense you were talking about. You're talking about objective truth, a non-skeptical definition of truth, and nothing can ever be true that way. Okay, so that standard is not a good standard for a relativist or skeptic, and it's sort of pointless. Why would we be held to that standard? I mean, okay, it was a good idea. People came up with this criteria for truth, and then they went looking for something that would satisfy it, something we knew 100%. But, an important part of that process has been that, they never did find anything. I mean, it's kind of important to take into account the fact that on that step, upon which rested their hopes of defining an absolute truth that could exist, they never found one. So, my view is that we don't need that kind of truth. If that's the kind of truth we had to have, then yes, we'd have no truth. We do have something worth calling truth. They're approximate, they're truths about patterns, and yet they're not 100% true. They don't need to be. They are not. There is no reason to keep trying to hold truth to a standard that can never be met, that is a metaphysical standard, something that will never be met in reality just for reasons of logical inconsistency, not to mention our ability to take the data that it would take to get those truths, but just even in principle because of the logical situations around defining truth, we know we will never define truth by those means. So instead, we say, hey, I know what the pattern will be in the two-slit experiment. And somebody can disagree and say, well, listen, the pattern is really millions of little dots, and you don't know where the dots are. And I will say, right, I don't. What I know is that if I ignore a certain level of detail, namely the detail of where the particular dots occur, which is easily done with millions of dots because you'll have what looks like a continuous image. You don't even see the individual dots. You just see the result of all the dots clustered in a certain way. That pattern I can know. And I won't know the exact pattern because the exact pattern does have to do in a particular run of the two-slit experiment with where each speck, on the detector is, where each particle actually landed. That I won't know. Okay, but that's the arbitrarily too high criteria of knowing something. What I can know is that the pattern will look like a certain way to a certain degree of accuracy. So I hope that addresses some of your questions. I think there's still some open questions in this, and I'd be happy to carry on with this conversation. But I think I've answered at least a little bit, hopefully, what you were asking about these issues. Cheers.